Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of the National Theatre of Scotland Salon. My name is Stella Litchfield. I'm the Director of Development here, and normally I would be welcoming you from our creation space, Rockvilla, but due to current restrictions, we have pre-recorded this edition of the Salon. We began these salons last year when we were unable to gather in person, and it was a way for you, our donors and supporters, to hear directly from Jackie Wiley, our Artistic Director, and from some of the artists who have helped us create the programme. Thank you so much for your continued support. We appreciate it hugely. And in these strange and uncertain times, we are very grateful to have you alongside us, placing your confidence and trust in what we're doing and what we hope to do in the future. I hope you enjoy this delicious interview. And I look forward to seeing you all in person very soon. Fingers crossed for very soon.
Well, welcome everybody and Happy New Year. We are recording this conversation in early January for the next edition of the NTS Salon in February. So thanks very much for joining us, some from a distance, some a little further away. Brian, you're joining us from the US, and at the time of speaking to you, it's the morning after that awful night at the Capitol. But hopefully by the time we broadcast this, things will have got a little bit more positive. But you're filming a new series of Succession, is that right?
Yeah, we are. I just got the call this morning. We've postponed the start because of the COVID rise in New York. I don't know. We'll be starting next week, but we have very strict protocols. We get tested every day. And I spend most of my time up here. I don't go into the city now, sort of because I'm playing number one on the call sheet. I have to be responsible.
Logan Roy, yes. We'll talk more about that later. Ian, where are you joining us from?
My office in Edinburgh, which is a one-bedroom flat, very cozy.
And we've got Jackie joining us from a very snowy Glasgow. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Shireen. Good to be with you all on a snowy day.
Absolutely. Now, we have Brian and Ian with us today to talk about John Rebus, The Lockdown Blues. That was one of the very first scenes of survival that were commissioned way back in lockdown 1 last year. It seems so long ago now, but it was one of the most popular ones. Jackie, tell us how it came about and who did you decide to approach first? Was it Ian? Was it Brian? We'll get your version and then see if theirs matches yours.
Well, at the beginning of Scenes for Survival, at the beginning of the first lockdown, we knew that we wanted to stay connected to audiences, and we knew that we wanted to keep going, and we had a responsibility to keep going. And both Ian and Brian were like one of the first calls that we made, because when you see the Rebus piece, there's something that happened with that piece where we understood what we were doing, because the truth about Scenes for Survival was that we did it, and as we were doing it, we were understanding why we were doing it and how we were doing it. It was almost like an instinctive desire to keep going as the National Theatre. But then we did Rebus, and the reaction that we had to the combination of the character of Rebus, but the character of Rebus being played by Brian, and the fact that this character being played by this actor was going through the same experiences that the rest of us were going through in Scotland, was actually, there was like a sort of wave of comfort. And I hope that doesn't diminish the sort of power of the art, but it actually comforted people to understand the Rebus and Brian could also be going through the same difficulties that the rest of the nation were going through.
And Ian, what were your thoughts when you were approached? Was it your idea to do it this way?
I mean, I was approached at a very good time, in that I was getting asked a lot on social media by Rebus fans, how would he be dealing with lockdown? He would have to be shielding because he's got COPD. How would he cope with that? And so I'd been thinking about it. I was in the middle or near the end of writing a novel, but the novel, although it's a Rebus book, was set pre-COVID. So that was fine, but it got me thinking, what would he be doing right now? And so when the National Theatre of Scotland approached me, I was very keen to write something, to write a monologue that would explain to fans where he's at and why, what he's doing and why he's doing what he's doing and how he feels about it. And often in the Rebus novels, you know, it's not first person. He's not actually talking to you. You're watching him as he goes about his business. So it was a challenge in a way to sort of write that kind of a long first person piece of speech. But I really enjoyed it because it did help me to understand more deeply, not only the character of Rebus, but his connection to his ex-colleague Siobhan Clarke, who is now basically his carer in a COVID sense, because she's the one who's bringing his shopping and not allowing him to go out, checking up on him and taking the dog for a walk so he doesn't have to. So she's like a surrogate daughter because his daughter in real life lives a long way away. So yeah, it was a challenge, but it was great. And then of course, when the national, first of all, they said, yes, we like this piece, it's fine. We did a little bit of tweaking of it, but not much. And then he said, oh, by the way, we've approached Brian Cox. And he said, yes. And I just thought, wow. Because back in the mists of time when Brian and I were both young men, he was my first choice to play Rebus on screen.
I remember.
But he was very busy in Hollywood at that time doing other things. And eventually John Hannah took on the role after many years of bouncing the idea around and the script around. So suddenly, at this point in time, to get my man was fantastic.
And how did you feel when you read the script, Brian?
Well, it was a sort of completion of a circle for me. I mean, you know, I knew that I'd been approached about Rebus, and I actually really wanted to do it, but it was never been able to, you know, timing was wrong. And then John Hannah did it. And then the second time around, of course, Ken Scott, who I thought was absolutely brilliant in it, by the way, I thought he was tremendous. He did it. And so I kept thinking, and so when the script came, it was a no-brainer. I mean, it was brilliantly written, you know, from Ian, but it was a no-brainer. I thought, I have to do this. This is something I've got to do. This is meant that I do this. I do this man in his COVID state and his repressed state, and dependent in a way on things that he was never dependent on before. You know, he's been put into a situation, and especially with the COPD. So it was just right. It just felt right. So and of course, Cora Bissett, who did a great job in directing it, it was very clear. She had a very clear idea about it. You know, she was great. You know, so it was you know, it got my taste buds going for coming home. You know, and doing something back home again. You know, so I was touched by it too. I was very touched by the piece. I just thought, you know, what an extraordinary character he was, you know. So it was, it was the completion of a circle for me.
You say coming home, but actually you were doing it from upstate New York while Cora was directing from here in Glasgow. And I believe you had to go to some length to recreate that second floor Marchmont flat. What did you do?
Well, it was impossible. I mean, I thought, here I am. And I mean, if you saw, this is my house, you know, this is nothing like a second floor Marchmont flat anyway. But I have a cabin up on the hill there, and which is part of the property. And I thought, oh, well, I'll go to my cabin and I've got a kitchen, you know, it's a pine kitchen. And I thought, perhaps this could work, you know. So we used my kitchen, and it seemed to work.
Yeah, and there was something about buying dog food as well.
Oh yes. I got tins, cans of stuff, and I put them up. And then I also got a map of Edinburgh that I had put up as well. I was trying to make it, you know, I'm not a production designer, but I was
You are now.
Yeah, I am now. I was trying to make it as feasible as Edinburgh as possible, since I was very far away. But then Edinburgh's I always regard Edinburgh as my spiritual home. I'm a faithful Dundonian, but all my spirituality comes from my time and my connection with Edinburgh. I just love Edinburgh. I went to, you know, my auntie Jean lived in Edinburgh, and I used to go there when I was from the age of 2. And I remember an incredible sensation of walking over the mound, and I was 52, and I had the hair stood up on the back of my head. It was really literally the back of my head. The hair stood up, and I just thought, I've known this city for 50 years, and it still excites me. It's just, I don't know. You know, people used to go on about, oh, Edinburgh's this and Edinburgh's that. Edinburgh's fucking amazing. I just think it's the most beautiful place. I'm also an East Coaster, so I'm a wee bit biased.
I have to say that the really interesting thing, my family are all from Edinburgh, and just there was a really specific Edinburgh reaction to Rebus. Actually, there was like, my dad went through the lockdown completely on his own, and he, like, the idea of Rebus being in his flat, going on his own, and this kind of parallel Edinburgh, I think it was an amazing connection for people in Edinburgh and across Scotland. Just the way that, just imagining that there were that Rebus could possibly be in Edinburgh going through the same set of emotions was really incredible.
Ian, how did you feel actually watching it?
Well, the one thing I was going to say as an addendum to that is that I maybe should have done this, because the thing I learned, or one of the many things I learned during that first lockdown, was that the tenements could become miniature societies. That people who really weren't used to mingling with each other, they would climb the stairs and go into their own flat, and that would be them, were coming out to a certain extent. They were meeting on the stairs. They were having almost parties. Friends of mine who live in a tenement were having dinner parties, sitting on different levels, eating the food they prepared, but talking to each other up and down this stairwell. And it was a chance for me to introduce Rebus to some of his neighbours, and I didn't take it. And I slightly regret that, because it's a chance for him to be less of an old bugger of a curmudgeon.
That might have been more difficult.
And to see that there's more, that society isn't just him and a case, that society is a bunch of people around him who then could help him, who could take the strain from Siobhan Clarke and go and maybe fetch his shopping or take the dog for a walk. But he's always been such a loner that I didn't do it.
That might have been a bit of a challenge for Brian to create that set in upstate New York.
It might have been. But, sitting watching, because it was all done through Zoom, and I was sitting here in Edinburgh watching Brian in his kitchen, and he had a bottle of whiskey as well. It wasn't just dog food and a map of Edinburgh. There was a bottle of whiskey there as well. It's proper set dressing, that was. But the hairs did stand up on my arms as well, because that made it 3D. It wasn't just words on a page anymore. It was a human being and their reaction to being in lockdown and to having to isolate and shield. And I thought Brian just caught it absolutely beautifully. And the later Rebus, the Rebus that I now enjoy writing about, is a guy in his later years. He doesn't have the physical heft that he once had. He can't intimidate people the way he once did. He can't chase after suspects the way he once did. He's learned about fragility, and he's learned about his own shortcomings, and he's learned about his humanity and the fact that he's mortal. He is not an immortal. When you're young, you think you're never going to die. And I think that COVID brought home to Rebus with his COPD that if he did not shield and did not take care of himself and was his usual bull in a china shop maverick self, he might die. And so that, I think, is at the back of everything. That's behind Brian Cox's eyes when he's acting, is that sense that all of that's going on. He might not be saying it to us, but he's feeling all of that. And I thought Brian caught that really well.
It must have been really difficult to catch all of that, Brian, just in 11 minutes. I mean, how did you do it? Can you talk us through the process?
It was a gift. Ian's writing is just incredibly good, and you just want, this is a gift. You don't want to get in the way of it. You have to be the transmitter of it. You can't put yourself, you have to go in. It has to go in. Which is what I believe the root of all acting is, I've acted for 60 years, and I've noticed that, that the only acting that works for me, and I'm a huge fan of TCM, which is this Turner Classic Movies, and I'm a huge fan of Spencer Tracy. and I could watch Spencer Tracy till the cow comes home. I mean, he's just, to me, the greatest screen actor ever. Just his simplicity, his, you know, and I think that's what I aspire to. So for me, I want to be simpler and simpler and simpler as I get older as an actor. And you know, the Rebus thing was just perfect. It couldn't have been more perfect. And the timing was, you know, given the fact that we were in lockdown and we're in this crazy country with this crazy fucking president, you know, and, you know, people are dying, you know. I mean, we lost an actor, we lost one of our actors, and it came home very quickly. Right at the beginning, we lost a wonderful actor called Mark Bloom. And that had a profound effect on me because I know Mark, I knew him, you know, and he had been, I think he was slightly asthmatic, but he was gone within days, and his wife nearly died as well. And it was horrendous, and she couldn't see him. She was separated from him. He was, you know, he was in isolation, and he died in isolation. And that is just one of millions of people. So I did feel that the reverberation, you know, if one didn't stand in the way of it, the reverberation of Ian's script would come through in the way that it should come through. And I was delighted. I was honored and delighted to have done it.
And if one of the later Rebuses are finally filmed, would you be up for doing that, Brian?
I would now.
There, you heard it here first, Ian.
Yeah.
You'll get your preferred actor.
Finally. I've only had to wait 30 odd years.
Yes, I know, it's been a long process. But I'm still, you know, I'm hopefully I've got a few years left, you know, before they carry me.
The other thing was really extraordinary is that at the very beginning of doing the Scenes for Survival, they would kind of arrive in our inboxes, and we didn't really know what to expect because they just, you know, the recordings, because it was such a strange process where, Brian, you had to kind of, so much of it was on you, really. You were supported by Cora, but really it was a lot of sort of rigorous technical work to get
Absolutely.
us and we were so appreciative because when we called you and asked you, I think we didn't fully know what it was going to entail to make it. We just knew that we had to sort of connect with our audiences, and then it sort of arrived into our inboxes, and it suddenly made complete sense to us what we were doing and why we were carrying on with Scenes for Survival. And we just had this innate sense that it was going to have the impact that it did. And we also like understood what it meant for an actor to be on their own in their house with their phone or their computer, recording themselves in this completely new and sort of challenging context.
We find ourselves now, guys, in lockdown too here in Scotland. And Brian, you were saying production and Succession has been halted briefly because of a rise of cases over there. I don't know about you, but I have gone, you know, through various different stages of feeling really negative about the future and then really positive as things start to open up again. And now, you know, I wonder where everyone is now about thinking about what the future for theatre might be. You know, just what is your feeling at this moment, Ian?
Well, I'm a big fan of soliloquies, and I've never been able to really do them in the book. So getting a chance to write a soliloquy was fantastic. There's been a lot of that. I mean, there's been a lot of one actor in a room on their own, or possibly a couple of actors doing it via Zoom or whatever. And the National Theatre of Scotland has stretched what is possible in terms of theatre. And of course, writers will adapt. Creative people will always adapt, and they will take on board any new technology that needs to be taken on board. And if the material is good and everything comes together well, then the audience will come with you. And the thing about this is, as opposed to an audience having to make the trek to a theatre in Edinburgh, Glasgow, or anywhere else, the audience can sit anywhere in the world and suddenly see productions from Scotland. So this has been a huge calling card in a way for the National Theatre of Scotland, which was set up to be a peripatetic theatre company, to have no physical construct, no sort of headquarters, but actually to put site-specific stuff on in early days. And that's kind of what's been happening, is an awful lot of site-specific stuff. hopefully theatre will come back. I mean, and it will come back. It's trying to persuade an audience to come back to theatre, to sit with a bunch of strangers in a big theatre where somebody's coughing right behind you, and a stranger is sitting right next to you, persuading them that it's safe to come back. But the live theatrical event, you just can't beat it. I've been missing it like hell, from the pantomime in December through to all the things we've had tickets for and have been cancelled or you know, having to rebook. So I hope live theatre does come back, but you know, creatively, I think it's been an interesting time. People have adapted as a way of using this time to write, to change the way they write, to change the way they structure a narrative and put on a production.
How are you feeling about the future for theatre, Brian?
I think it's very healthy. I mean, I think that we've gone through this thing, but I think that and what I'm proud of, and particularly with the STS, Scottish National Theatre, I'm very proud of the fact they didn't give up. They kept going, and they've discovered a new paradigm, really, which is this Zoom paradigm, which is actually opens up enormous potential for all kinds of things. So I mean, I think it's a terrible time in many ways, but it's given us an opportunity to really sit back and think about what the validity of theatre is and how important it is that we have to get back to being communicated. I mean, I spent some time in Russia teaching there and directing there in the 80s, and the director of the Moscow Arts Theatre was a man called Alek Efremov, and he went back to the old theatre. They had built this very modern version of the Moscow Arts Theatre, which was all modern, and people were very separated out. And he said this great thing. He said, yes, he said, I just want the elbows to be touching. I want the elbows to be touching. And of course, that is the fantastic thing about the live theatre, is the touching of the elbows, the fact that you sit there and you're part of a community, you're part of it's a spiritual experience. It really is. And you sit there, and that's what's going on stage and how it affects you in the audience. It's unbeatable. So naturally we crave that, and naturally we feel that lack that we haven't got. But at the same time, it's given us a chance to reboot, to really rethink, and actually come out the starting gate pretty damn hot. It's ironic because I discovered this article I wrote 20 odd years ago called The Loneliness of the Monologist. And it was about the whole business about the soliloquy. And it's very interesting what Ian is saying about the soliloquy, because, you know, in theatre terms, you know, you have the drama where it's the interchange of the actor and the other actor. But then the soliloquy breaks through the fourth wall, and it breaks into a whole different area, which I love. I love that. And I think Ian loves it too, that the fact that you can talk directly, and then you go back, and even in scenes which are, even where you're supposed to be overheard, you know that the audience is supposed to get something. So there's always an element of the soliloquy in everything you do, you know. It's indisputable. And
now you know what I'm doing is going through all of the plays, classic plays in my head, which are focused on soliloquies, so that I can convince Brian to come and do them live at some point when we can get back into the theatres.
Well, I mean, Shakespeare did it. You know, it goes right back to Shakespeare. That was the strength of Shakespeare. You know, when his actors spoke to the audience, when Hamlet says, hey guys, I've got a problem here, you know, is it a good idea? Should I kill myself? Should I go on with this? You know, is it right? Am I being hoaxed here? Is the devil at work here? I mean, it's brilliant. It's just brilliant. And it understands the power of it. And it is tremendously powerful. Conor McPherson, the Irish writer, does a lot of that too.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite playwright is probably Samuel Beckett, and Beckett is all soliloquies. Even if there's and Waiting for Godot is basically a series of soliloquies. It's just other people on stage at the same time. But it's but it's brilliant. I mean, I love it, and I love it in Shakespeare as well. And like I say, it's something that, the novel being the novel, you can't do it. You can't break that fourth wall. You can't suddenly have the main character turn around and say, "Look, reader, this is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about." because that just shatters everything, and you can't pull them back in again once you've done that. Or at least maybe you can, but I've not tried it.
Well, Jackie, NTS has certainly managed to harness the power of the soliloquy in the last year, but we do miss the touching of the elbows. You know, it has been a roller coaster for you and the team. How are you feeling about the future, and what do you think the last year has taught you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has been a roller coaster, but I love that touching of the elbows, because I always think about it like when your like heart races and your breath quickens when you're in the theatre, you realise that you're breathing simultaneously with other people, and that's, we're never going to not be hungry for that experience. So I'm absolutely certain that that we will come back to live experiences within the beautiful Scottish theatres. But at the same time as that, we're also thinking, one of the things that we've learned is that there's almost a new form or a new art form to be explored, which is that space between theatre and film, or theatre and the digital world. And maybe it sounds a bit technical, but we've started to see hybridization quite a lot at NTS, like talking about this place where theatre artists might come together with filmmakers or digital makers in order to have that kind of wide reach, and to try new ways of telling stories and understanding the world. So I do, you know, and like having to dig really deep, you know, the whole team at NTS are digging deep because we knew that there was a possibility of going into another lockdown, but I think the reality of it is difficult because we're so desperate to reconnect with audiences, but at the same time we feel resilient. We feel resilient and we feel ready to keep going. So yeah, as soon as we can get back out there, we'll be back out there, but at the same time, we're enjoying the creativity of the challenge.
We haven't got long left, folks, but before we finish, I wanted to ask Ian, am I right in thinking that you have just completed the manuscript for that unfinished novel by the late, great William McIlvenney?
Yeah, I mean, I'd submitted to the publisher what I thought was a fantastic book. And of course they said, yeah, can you just change X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, and F? You know, I had another look at it. I've made a few changes, given it a polish, and it has gone back to the publisher, hopefully for the final time. It should be published on, I think, the 1st of September, beginning of September, it's going to be published. And the nicest thing about it, without giving away too much, I did get a lovely letter from Willie McIlvanney's widow, just to say that when she read it, she felt like he was back in the room with her.
Oh.
And that was what I wanted. I wanted my voice to be invisible. It had to be Willie McIlvanney's world, his philosophy, his characters, and his voice. So it ended up being an act of ventriloquism, really. And so if you can see me on the page, I've not done my job. It's Glasgow in 1972. It's an early case for Laidlaw. And it is hopefully William McIlvanney's voice.
I really look forward to it. Was he an inspiration for Rebus?
Yeah, and I mean, I did say that to him the first time I met him, which I think was at the Edinburgh Book Festival around about 1985, when I got him to sign a book, and I said, I'm writing a book about an Edinburgh copy, a bit like your guy Laidlaw. And he actually wrote inside the book, good luck with the Edinburgh Laidlaw. Oh. And I've still got that somewhere. And I met him, you know, when I met him 20 years later, he said, Edinburgh Laidlaw done good. But no, he was a huge inspiration, and a lovely man, as we all know. And what a fantastic poet, what a fantastic writer, and what a fantastic thinker, and a great loss to Scottish literary life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What is the book called?
That's a good question. I think it's called The Dark Remains. The Dark Remains. And people say to me, remains, is remains a noun? Is it what is it? Is it the dark that remains, or are the remains dark? And I don't know. It was Willie's title, but it's quite enigmatic. Quite a lot of the notes he left behind were fairly enigmatic. I was having to become an archaeologist to try and dig deep to see where's the buried meaning here. And I've done as good a job as I can.
That sounds amazing. I mean, it must be really difficult to write in somebody else's voice, especially when you've been writing your character for so long.
Well, especially difficult because it's Glasgow in 1972. In 1972, I was 12 and living in a mining village in Fife. And I'd probably never been to Glasgow. I was thinking back, I think I might have been to Glasgow once for a football match at Hampden. That was about it. So it's a city that I didn't really know at a time that I didn't really remember. So I did what every good writer does. I went to the library in Edinburgh when it reopened, and I got out the Herald, the Glasgow Herald newspapers for 1972 and went through every bloody one of them.
That's
and then also reread
amazing.
Willie's books.
That's
Of course, I reread
amazing.
Willie's books several times. And funnily enough, in one of the Heralds, there was a tiny wee news story in October, and it was a story of a writer called William McIlvanney who just got a writing fellowship at Strathclyde University.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I've agreed to audio your book.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So there's a revelation for you. We've got Laidlaw
this is
sitting in
like
a room with us. Laidlaw and
So we've got
Rebus.
Rebus and Laidlaw in the same room. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's difficult. I don't want to be contentious, but I've always been a huge fan of Willie McIlvanney, and I knew his brother Hugh very well as well. In fact, Hugh covered me when I went to Russia. But what I always felt was that the whole, I don't know if I can say this, but the whole question of Taggart in relation to Laidlaw is a very debatable thing. And I felt very angry about the way Billy was treated on that, actually, quite frankly. I was really, really angry about that. But I won't say any more.
This is like
Just leave that hanging.
Yeah,
I'll leave it
absolutely.
hanging. One, you have to be careful. I just don't. But there was a great deal of contention of, where did Taggart come from?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, we'll look forward to hearing Brian Cox's version of Laidlaw and the new series of Rebus, of the old Rebus, obviously, Ian. We've got that. I think that's a done deal. That's a done deal. Well, Brian, before we end, I need to just ask you about Succession. I know that you've paused filming, but it's imminently about to start refilming.
Yeah, we've shot 2 episodes. We've got 2 episodes under the hood.
I have to tell you, I'm a real fangirl. I absolutely adore Succession. Can you give us any hints as to what might happen to Logan?
Well, I can't, unfortunately, because we're sworn to secrecy about it. We can't really reveal. But I think it's a very, very roller coaster of a series, the 3rd one. I think you'll be in for incredible surprises. I don't think it gets near mayhem at times, but then it emerges in an extraordinary way, which I cannot tell you, but it's very exciting.
Brian, you need to know that Shireen has the ringtone. She has the theme music.
Here it is.
The music.
She's so
Rebel's
obsessed
music
with it.
is
She has
incredible.
the ringtone, the theme music ringtone.
Yeah, the score is incredible. It's an incredible.
That is the best theme tune ever. Usually I skip the titles, but I always turn that one up full blast. Ian's only got Council Telly, so you've not seen it.
I've only
yet.
got Council Telly. I've not seen Succession yet. I know I'm waiting for the DVDs.
Yeah, well, it's been an amazing kind of thing, kind of the whole thing about Succession, just how it happened, and how it's come about, and how in my age that suddenly that, you're going, I mean, it's weird. When I was a wee boy, when I was a young actor, my vow to myself was, I hope I'm still doing this in my 70s. But I didn't imagine it was going to be quite like this in my 70s. So it's even better than I thought it was going to be.
The thing that's
really
amazing about the show is it's so theatrical as well, Brian. I don't know if you find that in the creation of it.
It's absolutely.
It's like watching every episode is this kind of Shakespearean weight to it.
But
it's
also,
extraordinary.
but also these long scenes which we have, which are shot, and they are like theatre scenes. I mean, they really are like theatre scenes. Like there's a sort of very strong theatrical influence there. And and we have genius writers, led by the genius that is Jesse Armstrong. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Well,
Somebody
Ian, you've
watching,
got to
one
get
of
the
our
box
number
out.
who shall remain anonymous, Brian, has said, would you consider saying the words "fuck off" just to satisfy her?
No,
Yeah.
fuck
In
off.
Logan Roy, no, as
You've
Logan
got to be
Roy.
Logan, though.
That's Logan Roy. Fuck off.
Brilliant, brilliant. I
Fuck
think that's a
off.
very
I did I did a wee thing for my wife, made me do this thing for the new year. 2020 can finally just fuck the fuck off.
I think that is a very good note to end on, and it kind of sums up our feelings about where we are in our lives right now. Ian Rankin, Brian Cox, thank you so much for joining Jackie and I. We wish you well, and we look forward to the talking book. We look forward to Succession. We look forward to Laidlaw and the next Rebus. Have a great year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye. I miss the pub. Pubs plural. All pubs. Pubs many and various. I'd even risk the ones I wouldn't normally visit. As an ex-cop, there are places you know to avoid. People with long memories. And your face might just be the one that'll set them off. But I'd risk it. Right now, even at my age and my condition, cans and bottles are just not the same. I'd have said that I am not the most sociable type, but a wee bit of chat, I mean, even unspoken proximity to a few other human beings who are as interested in the bottom of their glass as you are. Instead of which, Siobhan rings the bell, leaves a bag at the door. I'm supposed to wait 30 seconds before I fetch it, by which time she's halfway down the stairs. So we have a bit of a chat, socially distancing, while I check the bag, ready meals, milk, dog food, the basics, a newspaper, plus a few cans or bottles. Though she tells me I shouldn't. I'm supposed to be looking after myself. Government says I'm high risk, so I suppose I must be. That's my age, plus the COPD. Last thing my long-suffering lungs need is the virus or a wee touch of pneumonia. Oh, the beard. The beard's it's not a lockdown thing, it's a canna-be arse thing. Back when I started as a cop, you couldn't have a beard or tattoos. Come to that. Nowadays, anything goes. I doubt I'll bother getting a tattoo though. Oh, the dog food's not for me, by the way. It's for my dog, Brillo. Though I do remember reading somewhere more pensioners than pets eat pet food in America. Some of it doesn't smell too bad. No, not at all. Not like some of the pies I've tasted in the last years. So, I don't even take Brillo for a walk. Siobhan does. Same routine. Open the door, let the dog out. She's waiting for him halfway down the stairs. I'm allowed exercise, I tell her. Walk around your living room then. She says, you'll live longer. Aye, or maybe it'll just feel like it. You can Zoom people, she says. What people? Huh? The people I like are like me. And people like me can't get their heads round Zoom and all the rest. I shovel coal into my computer every morning, to get it going. Council telly, no Netflix or Sky. I can use the phone, send texts. But who am I sending texts to? Who? Siobhan, that's who. With the next day's shopping list. So, instead, I keep the record deck warm, dust off LPs I've not played and donkeys. At school, you were either Beatles or the Stones. Now, you're allowed to be both. People are allowed to like whatever they like. Mards can be rockers, Teds can be hippies. The first time Siobhan mentioned a TED talk to me, I wondered what had happened. The people were suddenly interested in TEDs. You can better yourself, she says. Lots of free courses online. Plenty of clever stuff on the radio, albeit punctuated by the newsreader of doom. Death totals up, makeshift mortuaries, New York, Italy, Spain. They even seem to have run out of "and finally" stories. The funny ones they always tack on the end of the bulletin to stop you from putting your head in the gas oven. Write your memoirs, she says. So, she gets me a pad and a packet of biros. I'm halfway down the first page. Might see if I can finish the sentence I started. Sentence. That's what this feels like. I always wondered when I was in the force what it would like to be in a cell. I thought I'd be fine with it, a few books, wireless, feet up, meals prepared for you, holiday camp stuff, dandy, until you feel how close the walls are to you. No way of pushing them back. Nowhere to hide. See, that's the great thing about the outside world. The supermarkets and the pubs and the shops and the pavements. You can hide there. Hide from yourself. Whereas in here, detention. That's what I've got. Music and a dog as my cellmates. Music, a dog, and the inside of my head. Until she rings the doorbell. Oh, it's like a shot of adrenaline, that noise. I wish she'd stay longer. Keep the chat going next time she comes. I'll yell down the stairs to her. Tell her how much she means to me. Well, what does it matter if the whole stairwell hears? That's what I'll do. Aye. Maybe I'll do that. Aye.